Hi everyone. Today let's talk about Bitcoin and the new approved ETFs. Then we'll talk about Riot and Mara as the two Bitcoin miners that kind of lead the pack. Then we'll take a look at some quick data as well as the charts. Then we'll look at my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So the SEC finally approved the Bitcoin ETF. There has been a lot of chatter about this potentially happening, and then we saw a breach of X where they announced it on the SEC X account, and that was fake, and then eventually it did come out, and it is true now. And you can see a couple of them here. BlackRock with BLK.N, 21 shares at ABTC.S, and then Invesco at IVN.N. So a couple of them there for you to invest in if you want to own Bitcoin through a spot ETF, the same way that GLD trades as a spot ETF for gold. And the question is this going to send Bitcoin higher? It seems like it hasn't really done it quite yet. I think this was already priced in. I think people kind of knew that this was coming, and it has already pushed up Bitcoin quite a bit. But the question is, where do we go from now? I do think it'll be interesting. There's some price targets as high as $100,000 for Bitcoin, which would be about a 100% move from current levels. And we'll take a look at the Bitcoin prices. I don't usually look at cryptocurrencies very often, but I do think it's worthwhile here with this big news. Moving over to Riot, they had a massive year. This is a Bitcoin miner, 356% last year. It's down a little bit here today. Bitcoin was up a little bit. Again, we'll take a look at those charts, but look at this massive outperformance from Riot versus Bitcoin, and then all of those are massively outperforming the S&P 500. So crypto does seem like a good spot to be right now. I'm not a huge fan of it. I do like things that have options, and the Bitcoin options are pretty massive in terms of notional value, so it's a little bit tough for me to trade, but this does seem like a better opportunity with the spot ETFs. And then once the spot ETFs start to see some volume, if we start to see some more traditional options on those ETFs, I think that will be interesting. Start to see the derivative market play into where Bitcoin's going to go from here. But then you have the miners as an opportunity with Riot and Mara, and Bitcoin mining continues to do quite well, despite the fact that the amount of money they're paid has been reduced by 50% every 4 years. In terms of seasonality, we are still here in a pretty aggressive rally early in this election year, and it is projected based on their analysis that we are still going to have a positive year, and it does still seem like that's possible. We'll take a closer look at it on the charts. I'm still looking at some potential for downside. We're at a critical point. If we break out, could be interesting, but if it turns here, then I would expect more downside. Moving over to the economic calendar, 4-year note auction came in at 4.024, and that was still pretty substantially below the previous read. So definitely demand there for higher yields, higher than we had been seeing, with about 0.25% move higher. And we'll look at that on the charts as well. And then looking at tomorrow, don't forget we have core and headline CPI. That's going to push markets around at 8:30. If it actually steps down tomorrow, I do think we're probably going to see a pretty strong rally throughout the session. I do think that'll lead to more optimism about cuts earlier in the year. And then at the end of the day, we do got Fed balance sheet and the 30-year note auction at 1300. Fairly interesting. Moving over to Max Payne, all the way up to almost 477. So big move there. That first call wall is 476. So we'll see if we close above that on the Friday session. We talked about yesterday how there's a lot more puts here in the market now, and this put call ratio continues to go higher at 1.51. So interesting to see that. More puts in the market, pushing the market higher. 476, again, that first call wall. Above that, 480, and the top of the puts here is 478, 479, right in that zone. So if we do rally, based on this chart, you would expect a move into that zone, 478, 479, and that would put us back into more bullish conditions. Moving over to the charts, we did see another pretty large move up. So 0.57 to the upside, held that 21 EMA on the test, broke that first level, retested, broke that trend line, pushed higher. So my next resistance is 479.30, right in that 480 range. And you can see we're right back in this top here from the head formation. Obviously, if we take out the head, then this structure is going to be broken. We were still in it. We pulled back for that head move, broke down a little further than I would have thought, rallied into the right shoulder, And the question is, what happens now? If this double tops here, that's what I was talking about. That would be a clear point of rejection here for markets. Could overthrow it, could close right in this zone and then break down. And then you have a pretty clear reversal of conditions, even if it's not a head and shoulders formation. But looking at momentum here on the daily chart, you do have to respect it. We continue to step towards bullish. If this breaks out above this previous consolidation, that's going to be quite bullish. And actually, I want to put a shorter term level here. Not going to be my major level, but I do think it's interesting. We did top out right there at that same level from these previous highs. So super important. If that breaks right around that 477.24 level, you would expect a test of 479, and that would give you more bullishness. It is worth noting that right on that last bear candle of the day, you can see we did pull back quite dramatically, all the way from 477 back down to 475 just for a moment before bouncing. But look at that volume on that last candle of the day. Pretty crazy, 3.2 million. It's not outsized volume for the last candle of the day, but we hit that level, overthrew it, and sold off pretty aggressive. So there was definitely some people looking for a test of that previous high. And like I said on the daily chart, still looks bullish in my opinion. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis to everything else. Pulled back, tested the 21, rallied up, took out my level. Did pull back below it, so it closed below 408.80. Rallied above it here after hours, which is interesting. Looking at it a little bit closer here on the daily chart, you can see we're right at this high here going back to 19 December, as well as on 20 December, tested those levels and then pulled back. Don't forget, this is the week prior to options expiration. So we typically see a little bit of volatility on the Wednesday and Friday prior. You have not seen that yet. We saw another bullish day here today. So something to watch for in tomorrow's session. We're at that critical resistance, 408.81. And on the daily chart, you can see we did close below it. We're above it after hours. Your next level here is 412.75. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow on the hourly charts, you can see the Russell actually broke down. You had a double wick at this 193.86 level, but similar to the NASDAQ, we got above this level at 195, pulled back below it to close, and then after hours, we're back above it, looking at 198.75. Had a pretty big move down from this most recent low, but this is a double bottom at a higher low from this previous low, so IWM looking a little bit stronger going into tomorrow's session, looking at that on the daily chart. Still in consolidation, looking for a test of that 21-day moving average up at 197.16 seems possible. And then looking at the Dow daily chart, strong candle right at these previous wick highs. These are all-time highs for the Dow. No real price targets. If it breaks out above these wicks, could go anywhere. We don't have any levels above it, as this is still price discovery to the upside. It is worth noting that RSI on both of these is clearly below the SMA, but momentum does seem like it could be ticking higher over the next day or two. Moving over to RIOT and Mara, we said we'd talk about them, so here they are. They have had massive runs from the October lows. RIOT up about 113%, Mara to its peak about 320%. Massive moves. If you benefited from these, I know some of my watchers have benefited. Congratulations, these are awesome moves. It does seem like there's some pretty clear technical breakouts you could trade here. Tight consolidation, broke above this previous high with a solid move, continued much higher. If you bought the breakout here, you would have been looking at about an 80% move. Absolutely massive numbers. And you can see this volume, quite a lot of volume here on Mara. Not great to see massive volume at the top of a massive run. Usually means that some profit taking is happening, but it is worth watching. These might see some benefits from the news about the Bitcoin ETFs. Let's go ahead and look at these on the hourly charts. On the hourly charts, they look a lot less convincing. RIOT looks a little bit better here with some clear higher lows. Right at that 200 SMA, looking to break out, definitely seems interesting. And really both of these are having a pretty nice push here after hours, so definitely some movement. These might be interesting plays, definitely going to be in play for some trading for tomorrow. In terms of levels, $33 here for Mara seems possible over the next couple of days. And then on RIOT, your next high would be 1870. It does seem like it's rolling in that direction on the shorter time frames. Really for both of these. Moving over to Bitcoin, this is right at the top of a channel. So you can see we have a pretty clear channel. This is your upside, this is your downside. You have a midpoint here, pretty clear channel right at a peak. It's been kind of struggling at that peak a couple of weeks now, going all the way back to the beginning of December, pulled back, VWAP, testing it here again. If it breaks, there's a lot of room to the upside. Definitely could be interesting. That next resistance for me would be up around 65,000, so that would be massive. Similar to a move that we saw here, so you push up to a level, consolidate, break. Kind of seeing a consolidate, look for a break. Certainly possible with an asset like this. Could absolutely move pretty aggressively. It's done it before. Had a move of about 30% just from about mid-October to mid-November. And then we could see another rally like that of about 10 to 20%, would put you up into that 50,000 range. Certainly possible. Momentum looks a little bit bullish. Zooming into the hourly chart, momentum slightly bullish, RSI slightly bullish. Volume did see a little bit of selling. You can see we rallied up, saw some selling at that trend line, which is not great, but we're above it now. We're throwing some wicks. Looks like we're testing, looking to break higher. Definitely interesting. Again, if it breaks this critical line above these previous highs, 47,000, could be looking for a pretty significant move up into the 50 to 60 range. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple having another good day, rallied up after touching the 21. Hit that next level, 186.81. Didn't really get there until after hours, so that's interesting. Slightly bullish. RSI still looks clean. Looking for a break here. If it does, 189.96 is your next level. We're above all the short-term EMAs and SMAs once again, so that looks clean as well. And then looking at Tesla, much less good. Tried to retest VWAP, didn't quite get there, pulled back to the next level, 232.57. Held that level again, almost touched the trend line here. Let's go ahead and look at that one on the longer time frame. Looks like we touched the trend line on the daily chart as well as the 200 SMA, momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Everything looks pretty weak on Tesla. If that 200 breaks, who knows where we could go. My next level to the downside is 214. And right now, that's what you would have to expect. We are throwing some wicks at this support line. Starting to see a little bit of strength there. But like I said on the hourly chart, getting into the zone, continuing to make lower highs doesn't look great. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Both of these continue to look very strong. Gapped up and rallied on both of them. Amazon 1.56, Alphabet 0.87 at critical levels for sure. So Alphabet at 143.82. Talked about that being your first resistance. That was the peak here on 26 December. Did overthrow it with a wick. Closed right on it. And then we're right at that same level. It is up a little bit after hours. If that level breaks, you got trend up here at 147. And then my next level at 150. Similarly here on Amazon, did close above my 153.54 level, but you can see this kind of consolidation was right in this zone. So really you'd be looking for a break of these wicks closer to 154.80 or so. And we are right in that zone. And then your next level would be 159.89. Momentum continues to look very bullish on both of these. RSI looks good as well. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples was down slightly, 0.2, right at the level. Still holding 72.50. Momentum, basically nothing. RSI, slightly bullish. And then discretionaries actually got a little bit of a pop here. So 0.8, gapped up, rallied, almost touched VWAP. Got above the 9 EMA, momentum ticking towards bullish. Might see a little bit of risk on here. Maybe we retest that shorter term resistance at 178.40. Could be interesting. We're still below the 21. Momentum did tick towards bullish, but not by a lot. RSI still below the SMA. So showing a little bit of strength, definitely interesting. Not super convincing yet, but does look okay. Moving over to energy, just to go full circle on this. Energy actually looked a little bit worse than oil and gas. You can see oil and gas did break down, did close on a low, but really it's right at this low here from Monday, 8 January. And then looking at energy here, you can see this trend line broke. I closed that position and it fell even more, well below these previous wick lows. Your next support is down around this 80.63 area. We did see some wicks a little bit above that, so maybe we see some support in this 81 area, but we didn't even get there yet. So right now I expect more selling on both of these. I still like these in the medium term, but you can always be patient, wait for the structure to materialize, and they're just not showing it right now. Moving over to breadth on the 20 and the 50-day average. Both of these were actually bearish on the day, despite the bullish price action that we saw across markets, so that's not good. Typically, you want to see breadth and price action moving in the same direction, but right now we're seeing breadth pull back, move lower on both of these, while price action is going higher, so that's definitely interesting. And really, it's this 50-day average that is super concerning here. We talked about it yesterday. This RSI looks super weak. It continues to move much, much lower with price action still kind of hovering. I think this is going to break here pretty soon. So 83.83 critical level. We're right at it. If this breaks down tomorrow, that could give you some weakness across markets. Super important. Looking at this weekly chart too, we're right at that 9 EMA. Momentum continues to roll over here. and it just seems like we've peaked out. We haven't pulled back enough to sustain this rally, and that still supports my thesis of a potential right shoulder or a double top at this point. Moving over to yields, 2-year doing nothing, hovering in the same zone it's been in. But looking at the 10-year, had a slight pop, 0.37%, tested the 9 EMA, almost tested support, rallied up, bounced a little bit. This continues to move a little higher into this 4.25 area. That could be quite bearish for markets. RSI neutral at that 50 mark, but looks a little bit stronger. And I still think we're going to see this reversion here pretty soon. We're not super far off, about 1/3% before the 10-year gets back above the 2-year. And we've already been inverted for a very long time, something like 15 months already. Moving over to the put call ratio, I just wanted to mention this here. You can see how high we are on a closing basis. We haven't seen a high close since 25 October at this current level. We also wicked my first resistance at 1.4 on that Friday candle. So definitely some puts coming into the market, which is interesting. See if that props up markets at all, but we did hit the low. That was a bit of a top. Pulled back from there, hit the top, pulled back from there, and now we're still back in this range, but it does look like we're kind of headed higher. If we throw a big wick up to that 2 level, that could be interesting. But if that happens, that generally means that markets are moving lower, at least in the short term. And then we're starting to see quite a bit of bearish bias starting to come into markets. Moving over to the dollar, pulled back slightly, didn't do much. You can see daily chart 0.16 to the downside, momentum starting to fade a little bit. We're still in a consolidation, not doing much of anything. Still holding above the 200 on the SMA, but we're below all the EMAs on the hourly charts. So definitely consolidation, mixed signals on trend, waiting to see what happens. Moving over to bonds, this continues to be a little bit interesting. J&K gapped up, touched the level, 94.82, pulled back from there. You got a doji. Looks like this is establishing a lower high still, in my opinion. If you get an island reversal here, that could be quite bearish. Definitely set up for it here. Definitely something to watch for. And then looking at TLT, this continues to sell off. We've been talking about the 10-year looking strong. Sure enough, TLT breaking back down below the 200, back below my 96.50 level. Next support, you got the 144 down at 94.18, got trend support down at 94.55. Let's go ahead and extend this out. We might hit that right in that same zone, around $95 or so. RSI broke below the SMA. It does seem like TLT is set to pull back a little bit more. If this area breaks, then you got the 55 EMA down at 92.48. Moving over to volatility, both of these cratered here today. Move index fell a lot. VIX down a little bit, 0.7, still in the same range, 12.68. Didn't touch my short-term support at 12.35, so that's kind of interesting. Momentum continues to roll over. No new information on either of these. They both look a little bit weak. Moving over to my accounts, I did make a little bit of money. I did close my XLE position. I got stopped out at the point where I couldn't hold it anymore. You can see my account value did drop by that $7,000. I had a little banking error. That money should be back in there tomorrow or potentially the next day. Either way, it'll be back in there shortly. I wasn't really using it in that IRA anyway. Once it hits, I'll have to think of a way to use it a little bit more in that Roth account. Otherwise, I didn't change any of my positions. On the IWM, I'm still in good shape all the way up to $199 with that $10.95 credit. So about $4 of potential upside in that 30 days. And then looking at the Qs, this is where I'm in a little bit tighter spot. So I'm almost at max profit here. My max profit is that 409 area. You can see $397 plus $11. So that would put you at 408. And then this one here is a little bit higher at 409. So right in this zone, almost at max profit. I'm not sure that I want to roll these out or not. You can see I do have a lot of open loss, but that's not real loss because I'm still profiting on the share side. The question is, are we going to see a pullback from this level? You can see we're actually up a little bit more after hours, just like we saw on the charts, but that breadth is super concerning. I think we might pull back before we get these expirations. And really at this point, if I hit max profit on these positions, I think I might want to reset anyway. So I think I'll leave it alone. I'll continue to watch it tomorrow, see what happens. But right now I'm not making any adjustments. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of the Bitcoin ETFs or Bitcoin miners going forward. Are they going to see a massive boost? Are we just waiting for markets to open tomorrow? Otherwise, definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.